welcome to the Krueg Show, everybody. Larry Krueger, Ryan Smith. I also see in there in the green room. There he is, and the great Jack Hammer is with us as well. Jack does an incredible job covering the 49ers. He's got his own channel. What's going on, Jack? How are you?
I'm good. It's Friday. Can't wait for the weekend to get going, and then Monday night.
Oh, I know. It's the schedule's kind of screwed us up, man. I normally it's open locker room Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, but this week it's Thursday, Friday, Saturday. We'll be down there later on today for a little open locker room stuff, and we interviewed 4 or 5 guys yesterday. But yeah, different schedule, and for the 49ers, they need a win. They need a win. It doesn't matter what it looks like. What do you make of the whole lip reading thing? Why don't we start right there? That seemed like to be Kyle Shanahan addressed it yesterday in the presser, and it was weird. It was like, are you aware of it or are you unaware of it? I don't know if I believe any of these guys anymore. It's like, I don't even know what you're talking about, but then I know exactly what you're talking about. You know what I mean? It's like, I don't know what to believe at this point, but I don't know that it means anything. I personally don't think it means anything. But what was your takeaway? It seemed like there were a lot of people that were convinced that Garoppolo was saying that he either didn't like Shanahan's play calls or didn't like his draw calls or I'm not sure exactly what to take out of it. We played around with it, but what was your thought when you saw the up close that everybody kind of blew that story out of the water this week?
I didn't really make a whole lot of it. I thought that it was a result of him being frustrated with the interception. I didn't think it was anything necessarily to do with Shanahan in particular, like it kind of got blown up into. I kind of agree with you, though, at the same time. I find it hard to believe that Shanahan is completely unaware of that situation prior to walking to the podium yesterday.
Right. And that's what he pretended. And he said, I thought it was a joke, What do you think of the relationship between Kyle Shanahan and Jimmy Garoppolo? And I bring this up because Steve Young, made a great point a few weeks back where he said, I hope, and this is Steve talking, he's like, I hope that these guys take this like second go round at a marriage and put all their cards on the table and get beyond wherever they were. And put whatever issues Kyle has with Jimmy, maybe they should verbalize them. Whatever issues Jimmy has with Kyle, maybe they should verbalize them. And they could, if they do this, they can get to that next level in their relationship. And it sounds totally healthy. And I agree with Steve. But the more I'm around the 49ers, the more I get the feeling that, yeah, maybe Kyle talks to Jimmy every day. But I don't know that they are putting all their cards on the table and trying to improve their relationship. I don't know. I get more of a vibe that they're just kind of both going forward and doing what they do and let the cards fall where they may. That doesn't necessarily make me feel great because I don't feel like they're finding that new ground. We're analyzing their relationship from a distance, but what is your thought on the second go round between Kyle and Jimmy?
I think there's some disconnect in there. I'm aware of what Steve Young had said last week, and it's a tough situation here because the 49ers have tried to move on from Garoppolo. I don't know if you heard what John Lynch said this morning, but John Lynch basically said that Garoppolo told him that they were making a mistake by looking to move off of him. So I think there's definitely some disconnect between those two that they're having to work through. And if they don't win this week against Los Angeles, or maybe in these next couple of games, it's going to go downhill really quick, I think, between the two of them.
That's interesting. Ry, you want to jump in?
Yeah, that makes me a little bit nervous. What's your in terms of temperature on the team? Like, let's just say for the sake of argument that they do lose to the Rams on Monday night, like, where's your panic meter with this team? Are you still pretty confident? Considering how kind of weak the NFC is, or do you think that things will start unraveling if they lose this game?
I think if they lose this game, it's going to be really hard for them to dig out of this in terms of winning the NFC West. They might still be able to make the playoffs, but it's going to be tough. They can, they've got 2 easier games coming up after this that could possibly get them to 3-3. But then their schedule gets really tough. When you look at the games that they have just at Levi Stadium alone, if they lose this week and I said before the season, if they're 3-3 after the first 6 weeks, there's some major problems going on in Santa Clara, and I think that would still be the case.
What's your breakdown on the first 3 games? I mean, obviously it hasn't looked good. They're 1-2. They had kind of a very soft beginning to their schedule, and yet here they are 3 weeks in with a losing record. What's your takeaway from the first 3 weeks of the season?
My big takeaway is that the quarterbacks have let this team down, whether it was in Chicago with Trey Lance or last week in Denver with Jimmy Garoppolo. Both those games, they should have put up more points than they did, and misses by the quarterbacks or not pulling the trigger in one instance has cost them a lot of points, and that's why they are sitting at 1-2 at this time.
Is it absurd to talk Brock Purdy?
No, I don't. Oh, I mean, it's absurd in that we're not going to see him start in these next couple of weeks, but I think that you could see a Brock Purdy taking over probably like around the middle of the season, around that bye week, if this thing is going and trending in the wrong direction.
How do you evaluate him?
I like Purdy. I never understood all the negativity around him throughout training camp, because I saw a guy who could make all of the throws. My only concern with Purdy is the decision making at times gets a little wild. You watch his college film and you see him make some poor decisions in that respect. But I feel pretty confident in saying that, like, if Brock Purdy was making that throw to Deebo Samuel on Monday night, that's a touchdown.
Right.
He can make that throw. We've seen him make that throw in training camp. And Jimmy Garoppolo, he struggles with that throw even when the guy's not running down the sideline.
It's very interesting. So if I said to you, what's wrong with the 49er offense? Have you already answered that question? Have you already basically said, it's the quarterbacks, or is it tied to the run game? Is it tied to Kyle's play calling? Is it tied to the struggles in the interior of the O-line and now the not having Trent Williams? How would you evaluate? Because clearly the 49ers, you look at the numbers. I mean, I have them right here. They're third in points allowed defense. They're second in yards on defense. When you flip the card and you go to offense, they're 28th in points scored. They're 23rd in total offense. Do you put that all on the quarterbacks? How much does Kyle bear responsibility for that, or is there a factor that we're not considering?
Well, Kyle Shanahan's the head coach, so he's going to he has to be the blame for the turnovers, all those things that go along with it. But it's turnovers and it's quarterback play. In Chicago, you have the turnover by Deebo Samuel on the first possession. You have the airmail by Trey Lance on the second one. And then you go into the start of the second half, and on the first possession, you have Jawan Jennings wide open in the end zone, and the quarterback takes a sack instead of delivering the football. And so there's more points off the board. And then you go to this game on Sunday night against Denver, and you've got receivers running all over the field wide open, and the quarterback just can't put it on them, or chooses not to throw to him. It's really odd, and the offensive line hasn't been great. The running game was really good the first couple of weeks. It struggled a little bit, but you need the quarterback to be able to put the ball on guys when they're running wide open.
Hey, Jack, I'd say my biggest concern is sort of the lack of explosive plays. And I'd love to get your opinion on why we're not seeing the explosive plays that we normally do. And, is it just a matter of Jimmy's not hitting them? Or also, the run game doesn't seem like it's producing explosive plays outside of the long one to Jeff Wilson and the long one to Debo the week before.
Yeah, well, and this was a problem for the 49ers last year as well, the lack of explosiveness, and that's why they put Deebo Samuel in the backfield, is because they didn't have anybody in the backfield that could give them an explosive play. And I still don't see that. They don't have an explosive element in their backfield other than Deebo Samuel. That's why I think they need to get Jordan Mason in the game. Let's see what he can do in a regular season game because of the backs they have on the roster. He's the one that we've seen do it in training camp and in the preseason games. And so it's if you're going to, the running game kind of sets it up, but your quarterback needs to hit those guys. When you have Deebo Samuel running down the sideline and he's got to twist and turn and basically the quarterback's tackling him, that's a killer for you. And that's, I think they don't have an explosive element in the backfield, and then the quarterback doesn't give it to them either. I felt going into this season that they understood that they didn't have that explosive element in the backfield, but they're plan was to make up for it with Trey Lance and his arm because of his ability to get the ball down the field. You don't have that now. Can Jimmy Garoppolo figure it out? We haven't seen him really be able to do that in his career.
It's really interesting. Chaz in the chat here says last week was some of the worst play calling Kyle has had for 5 years now. Do you agree with that? Do you disagree? I mean, you said they were receivers open all over the field and you kind of put it more on the quarterback. How much responsibility does Kyle bear on this? It just seems like, we've been told over and over and over again, this guy's an offensive guru. He's got Kittle, Debo, Ayuk, Trent Williams. This is year 6. And, it's everybody who's there is handpicked by him and Lynch. How much of this is on Shanahan? Shouldn't they be better than 28th or 23rd?
Well, I agree with you that he does bear it, but I don't agree with Chaz here that it's the play calling that is Kyle's problem. I think Kyle's problem is that he's screwed up the quarterback position since he got here. He hasn't found a guy that can make the plays for him that he needs to be made. And he had it when he was in Atlanta with Matt Ryan. But since he's gotten to San Francisco, it's been hit and miss. And I think the biggest knock on him is that he hasn't figured out the quarterback spot. And Trey Lance was the big guy that they made that move for. They didn't play him last year. The expectation was he was going to do it this year, and now he's out. And without the quarterback position being fixed, that the quarterback is always the biggest everywhere, and the 49ers definitely haven't figured it out under Kyle Shanahan. I think that falls on his shoulders.
It's really interesting to me, guys, that Trey took so much criticism, and yet Jimmy just played a horrendous game. And where's the national criticism? It's not there. It's like you got a bunch of people kind of backing him, and he's rusty, and he's this. Well, this guy's made 48 career starts. He's been in this offense for years. But Trey Lance, it was like, we have evidence. Colin Cowherd must have said that phrase, we have evidence, like 5 times. Outside of Cowherd, who may have a personal vendetta against Trey, don't you think it seems like from afar? I mean, maybe this is not productive conversation because there's nothing that's going to change, but it just seems like from afar, Trey Lance was held to a ridiculously high standard for a guy who is incredibly raw, and Garoppolo is not held to as high a standard. And he's had the benefit of being in this offense and having multiple training camps. And I don't know. It just seems like we're holding these quarterbacks to different standards, and it just seems grossly unfair. Now, I'm not saying that. I think at the end of the day, Jack, that if you just evaluated them both this year, they're both like 5s in a scale of 1 to 10. They both have their issues. But I thought Trey was a smart, the investment. I thought he would get better, where I think Garoppolo is kind of, this is what he is. What do you make of the two standards for the quarterbacks? And is it based on anything that we're not considering?
No, I think the only reason Garoppolo gets the benefit of the doubt is because of the number of wins that the team has had when he's been on the field. But outside of that, I don't really understand. The excuses that have been made for him this last week are just ridiculous. He didn't have a playbook. He wasn't. I mean, come on.
I loved how you called that out. I mean, somebody threw that out there on Twitter, and Jack called that out, right? I don't know if you're like, hey, he's been in this offense for 4 years or something, didn't you? That was last week, I believe.
Yeah, I mean, he's been here since 2017. At 2017, this is the same playbook. He knows everything that's going on. It's not a playbook issue. It's just Jimmy Garoppolo doing what Jimmy Garoppolo does, and he plays the games like this, and he might bounce back this week and play great. But he didn't do anything on Sunday night that we haven't seen him do in previous games for the 49ers. You can go back, and there's examples in every season of him playing that poorly.
Speaking a little bit more of positives, I mean, how good do you think this defense is? Because that was my main takeaway from that game. Maybe I was trying to be contrarian, but I was like, honestly, coming away from that game, it's like the defense was on the field, 2 times the amount of time that freaking Denver was, and they were unbelievable. They were truly unbelievable. They were in coverage sacks on Russell Wilson. And so I kind of walked away being like, oh my God, this is like, I think I said yesterday, it's almost like the reverse of Kansas City, where it's like, the defense is like the Kansas City offense, where it's like, oh my God, I think it's like head and shoulders above everyone else. The offense is going to kind of maybe take some time. But yeah, so how high of regard do you hold this defense so far, 3 weeks?
I think the defense is awesome. They've only given up 28 points. You know, there's 9 that's been attributed to special teams and the offense. So they've only given up 9.3 points per game. They're still sitting there at 1-2. These guys have just been balling out. They have so much depth and they have studs at every level, and we're seeing that play out. They were just flying around the football field on Sunday night. It was a lot of fun to watch them play.
Yeah, no question. Defense has allowed an NFL low 3.9 yards per play. As Rye just referenced, 9 3-and-outs, 9 for Denver. And that was, future Hall of Fame quarterback early in the year with good weather at home. To hold him to 9 3-and-outs was really impressive. It's funny, Chris Collinsworth commented in the game that there's so much more that D'Amico can do now because he's got Mosley playing like a 1 and he's starting, and you've got Mooney Ward at the other corner, and he's a big kid, big bodied corner who's got a lot of experience as well. This is probably the best corner tandem they've had since Dion and Eric Davis in the mid 90s. I didn't study the all 22. I know you take a look at it. What has that improvement on the corner enabled D'Amico to do creatively with his defense?
Well, it's not just those two though. It's Talanoa Hufanga. His ability to play down in the box and make plays and just stick guys in the running game at the line of scrimmage or drop back into the back end of the defense and knock the ball away in man coverage or pick the ball off in zone. It's just been Talanoa Hufanga is so much better, I think, than people thought he was going to be. And then you add the pass rush that you have up front and the speed in the middle with Warner and that linebacker crew. I don't see them doing anything really outside of the norm of what we've seen them do in the past. They do a lot of 3. They look like they're in cover 2 and they bring Hufanga down as a robber. That's kind of their biggest change up right now is every once in a while they run that 3 buzz coverage. But other than that, they're just playing it straight up and they're just beating you because they're better than you.
If I said, when you cover the team as closely as guys like you and I do and Rye, it's, there's not a lot of things that necessarily surprise you, good or bad. But if I threw that out, here we are heading into week 4. What's been the most pleasant surprise from the Niner perspective? What's the biggest disappointment? What are you going with?
I think the biggest surprise is how good the defense has been. We expected them to be good, but I don't know if anybody expected them to be this good. If they can continue this out through the end of the year, you're talking about like something that's on par with the 85 Bears and the
2000 Ravens. They kind of remind me of the 2000 Ravens. I was mentioning it to Rye, like with Dilfer and the struggles offensively, also with a talented, respected offensive coach and Brian Billick. It's kind of similar to how Shanahan is. He's a respected offensive coach, but this team's all about D.
Absolutely. That was the other one as well. The Ravens. Those are really good examples of kind of what this team is it's going to be this year because they don't have a top flight quarterback. They're going to have to lean on the defense and they just need to hold on to the football.
Here's a question I haven't really heard thrown around much. How much credit do you give Kyle Shanahan for this defense? Because obviously, he's going to get ripped if the offense isn't doing well, but he's the head coach. He's the CEO of the team. He handpicked D'Amico. He's been involved in the drafting of a lot of these defensive guys. And the same way Belichick, it's like if you say Belichick doesn't know offense, well, ask other offensive coordinators if he doesn't know offense. It's kind of the inverse with Shanahan. What kind of credit do you give Shanahan for the defense?
I give him a lot of credit. I ripped him on the quarterback side, right, because of his inability to figure that out. But he is the guy that's putting this team together along with John Lynch. And so he deserves the credit for what they're doing on defense and just how good that side of the ball is. So I give them a lot of credit for what they're doing over there. I think Lynch plays a big role in it, and their whole philosophy about building from the middle out is partly why they're so good on defense.
2019, they make a run to the Super Bowl. They took the ball out. Kyle Shanahan really kind of took the ball out of Jimmy Garoppolo's hands against Green Bay and Minnesota. They ran the ball a ton. They passed it a little bit more in the Super Bowl. They ultimately wind up losing. I'm looking at their run pass splits 3 weeks in. They're 55% run, 45% pass. Now we go into this Rams game. What do you think the offensive game plan is Monday night? These teams got together in week 10 last year. Niners just said, you know what? We're going to make this a referendum referendum on toughness, and they just said instead of running around, we're running through. And they had that 18-play drive to kind of set the tone at the start of the game. What are you expecting to see as far as game plan Monday night against the Rams D?
They need to run the ball. If they can't run the ball, it's gonna be really tough on them. They've run the ball 30 or more times in 5 of the last 6 matchups against the Rams during the regular season. You know, they've won a high percentage of those games. They need to be able to sustain drives and that's where the running game comes in. And that's one of the biggest issues for them this year, has been able to sustain those drives. If they can do that, though, I give them a really good chance of winning. They've got to run the ball well, let Garoppolo just kind of do his thing off of play action. If you can run the ball, you're going to win this game. Run it and hold on to it. Those are the keys.
How much do you expect George Kittle to be involved in the passing game this week? I mean, last week, I think it was pretty clear they needed him in there to block. And also, now Trent Williams is out. So it'd be great to get him involved as a safety blanket. But, I'm not sure.
I think it's going to be similar to last season when they were down in Los Angeles in Week 18. He's going to get the ball a little bit, but he's going to have to help out with McKivitz every once in a while. He's had some really good games, though, against the Rams at Levi's at least. So they need Garoppolo to get the ball into the hands of their playmakers, and he's one of them.
McKivitz, steps in for Trent Williams. We talked to him yesterday. I love this kid, man. I love everything about him. Shanahan said, that he was asked about McKivitz and his line, and he's repeated this line before. The moment's not too big for him. And no moment's too big for this guy. He's got great confidence. Even Trent Williams in training camp commented about how he doesn't even see who's on the other side of the line of scrimmage when he's blocking him. He doesn't get nervous. He's just out there playing ball, and he's just like a good old boy from West Virginia who's out there with a dip in, and he's just going to kick ass. You know what I mean? It's crazy, but I love his demeanor. Who's he going to match up with? Is it going to be Leonard Floyd? Do you think he'll be Ashawn Robinson? Do they flip their ends? Will it be a little bit of both? What's the matchup that McKivitz draws?
I haven't watched the Rams defense enough to really be able to answer that one in terms of who he's going to draw. What we know of Colton McKivitz, he's going to struggle at times. He's going to do a really good job in the run blocking side. That's where his strength is. He's going to struggle a little bit as a pass protector. He's going to need a little bit of help. He's going to in particular, speed rushers are going to give him fits. So if it's Leonard Floyd, he's probably going to struggle a little bit more with him than the other edge rusher from the Rams. So that's what we're going to expect him to struggle in pass protection and excel in run blocking.
One of the big questions coming out of the NFC Championship game was, can the 49ers cover Cooper Kupp? They really just couldn't last year. They never had a matchup. The Rams, I think there was one game the Rams went to him 7 times. He caught 7 balls. They probably should have gone to him 15 times, but they went to him 7 times because they got so fascinated trying to show the 49ers how tough they were. Then they realized that by the NFC Championship game that the Niners couldn't cover Kupp, and then it just became Kupp, more Kupp. We mentioned the improvements in the secondary. What do you think? Is it Lenore? Is it Womack? I mean, it seems like quietly Lenore kind of slid past Womack, and I'm not sure why, because Womack seemed like he had some real nice plays on the football in the first couple games. Who's going to get the matchup with Kupp, and how do you think that's going to go?
I think it's going to be Lenore that's going to get there as far as the matchup. It's going to be a tough one for the 49ers, just like it was last year. We saw there was a play in the touchdown that Cooper Kupp scored in the NFC Championship game. We saw a play almost exactly like that last week late in the game against Denver that Denver hit. I don't think the 49ers have solved that issue right now in terms of their slot, especially with Lenore playing there. That's going to be kind of the matchup to watch. The way that they've changed it up is that they've got the outside guys that can handle it, and then now you might be able to get a safety that's going to be able to help that nickel out just a little bit more. Maybe get him up and get a little bit more pressure in his face, and knowing that he has somebody behind him that's going to be able to back him up.
Yeah. So how do you see this game going, like game prediction wise? I mean, you think the Niners bounce back in this spot, or I mean, and here's the other thing is I saw you put on Twitter, and I thought this was really interesting, is you put Stafford's interception percentage compared to Jimmy G last year. It was actually a tad higher. This year, I mean, Stafford is giving the ball away. So I think that's another major thing, especially with their offensive line kind of it's deteriorating, it seems like. I mean, the 49ers defense may be able to put some points up.
I think, I have this as a 49ers win before the season. I still feel like this is a bounce back game that they can take. And definitely Matthew Stafford, for all the great things that he does, he's going to give the 49ers defense an opportunity to take the ball away a couple of times in this game for sure. And if they can take advantage of that and they hold onto the ball themselves, they're going to win. That's just the way the nature of the way the 49ers are. There's no stat that tells you that if the 49ers are going to win or lose, like turnovers. If they win the turnover margin or they tied, they're 12-3 over the last 23 games, and compared to 1-7 when they've lost it. So if they can come out and they take the ball away from Stafford, I think the 49ers win this thing.
The 49ers have won 6 consecutive regular season games against the Rams. Who's the better coach between Shanahan and McVay?
I think that's a really good question, and that's a tough one because I think in some ways when you look at it, I really am a big believer in what Sean McVay's been able to put together because he's been really good every season he's been in Los Angeles. The only difference is that his starting quarterback was healthy all the time, whether it was Jared Goff or then last year Matthew Stafford. I think that's what the differentiator between these guys. They go after it, add it a little bit different. In a long roundabout way, I'm gonna still go with my gut, which is that Sean McVay is a little bit better than Kyle Shanahan because he's proven that he can go out there and do what it's needed to be done for his team to win the biggest game that is. And that's the only difference really between these guys, I think.
These teams are so guarded when it comes to giving information about injuries that it's like we get to Sunday and sometimes there's guys out who, we had no idea were going to be out because they're so guarded in how they announce injuries. But Danny Gray did not practice the other day and he was listed as a hip injury. Kinlaw was also out with a knee injury, which makes all 49er fans go, uh-oh, because he's had knee problems and he kind of plays upright from time to time and kind of gives offensive linemen shots at his knees. Do you expect Gray and Kinlaw to suit up on Monday night?
I think that Javon Kinlaw is going to have a chance to suit up on Monday night. We'll find out today if Danny Gray's out there at practice, if he's able to come back, that would be helpful for the 49ers. The whole thing there is with Jimmy Garoppolo quarterback, what's Danny Gray really matter in some ways, right? Do they have that ability to stretch the field as much as you would want anyway? It's interesting. Gray's an interesting case because he's hardly played and he's been on the injury report quite a bit this year.
This isn't even actually a question, Jack. This is just I'm reading this from Warren Sharp.
I've heard of him, yes.
Yes, he puts out a giant 400-page preview every year. I just think this is really interesting and pertinent. I'd like to just maybe hear your reaction to this. So this is in his part of his 49er preview. This is what he said. How do you have two coaches that are best friends in Kyle Shanahan and Sean McVay? Both became first-time head coaches in 2017. Both coach teams in California, and one team ranks 3rd, 1st, 6th, 4th, and 10th in worst injury luck those 5 years, and one team ranks 5th, 2nd, 10th, 4th, and 1st in best injury luck over those 5 years. So essentially, what he's saying is what he says, we're literally talking about Kyle Shanahan being cursed with the worst injury luck in the NFL for 5 straight years, while his friend Sean McVay has been blessed with the best injury luck in the NFL for 5 years. Do you think that is maybe as big of a reason why the Rams have been able to be consistently good as anything else? Or and then if also, do you think that there's anything about the way Kyle runs his program that causes more injuries?
I definitely think that the injury piece has a big part of it for both of them. And, I'd be interested to go back and I know I wasn't there during the Harbaugh years, but there's something about the way that the 49ers practice where I don't think it's really helping their guys get ready for the season. They're their practices aren't overly physical in any way. And you have to kind of get out there and hit and get your contact going and get used to getting hit. And on top of that, you get into the preseason, these guys don't play anymore. And Shanahan has a tendency to bring in a little bit smaller size running backs and those kind of things. So I think that's where one of the big areas of the injuries occurs for them. And there's definitely something that Shanahan is doing with his system that is causing these injuries or contributing to the amount of injuries. Maybe not causing it, but contributing to them.
It is interesting how McVay just says, you know what, I'm not playing my guys at all in the preseason, where the 49ers seem like they want to try to balance it and try to be ready, where McVay's just saying, you know what, I don't care if my guys are rusty in the first couple of weeks of the year. I want to make sure, you know, my money's on the field when the regular season starts. You know, and there are teams that are copying McVay because obviously the Rams just won the Super Bowl. Couple last minutes with Jack Hammer, who does a great job, Santa Rosa Press Democrat. He's got his own YouTube channel as well. You do a mailbag every week and you converse with the fans. What was was there, I'm sure there were probably repeat questions. What were the common denominators? What were the most common questions that the fans had about this team going into this matchup Monday?
Yeah, well, the two overriding things were Jimmy Garoppolo, what's going to happen with him, and Kyle Shanahan and you know, his play calling. Is he on the hot seat? What's it going to take for him to get on the hot seat? Those types of things. I think those were the two that's where everything was about, was all offense. Nobody wanted to there's not really nothing on the defense, and that makes sense. The defense is playing great. The offense is really not playing well, and it starts with the quarterback, and the head coach needs to figure out how to make it better. Those are the two that I saw most of everything.
How about Mike McDaniel? Any concern that, you know, that McDaniel could have been a key element of what they did offensively in the run game, and now without him, maybe some of the genius in the run game is missing? I mean, how do you view that? That's a very difficult thing to necessarily answer, I realize, because we don't know exactly whose fingerprints are on the game plan week to week.
Yeah, I would say that here's the thing. Mike McDaniel was with the 49ers last year when they started off 3-5, right? He was with the 49ers throughout this whole time when they were losing games and everything like that. So I don't think Mike McDaniel is, I get the question. I get why people are asking that, because that's a big change. But the 49ers ran the ball for almost 183 yards in each of the first two games. They didn't struggle until last week against Denver. It really comes down, for me, it's more about the quarterback than it is Mike McDaniel. Maybe it's not even Mike McDaniel. Maybe it's Rich Scangarello not being there any longer, because Rich Scangarello, he's out in Kentucky and his team's 4-0 right now and beat Florida a couple weeks ago. So, both those guys are doing very well away from the 49ers, and they're still having the same issues that they had, when those guys were here.
Khalil Young in the chat says, Larry, what about Eric Armstead? What's the status of Armstead? He didn't go last week, and obviously he's a key cog. Yeah,
well, he didn't practice again yesterday. From what I heard, there's definitely an issue with his foot. I heard it was plantar fasciitis. I'm not sure exactly what it was. That wasn't reported by the team, but I did hear that, and he's a key piece of it. The benefit there, though, is that they have some really good guys in the interior that have been able to step up, and we saw how well they did on Sunday night without him. But it would be great to have Eric Armstead against the Rams on Monday.
Right, you got any more for Jack?
Yeah, my last one is obviously Trent Williams is injured for like six weeks or so, whatever, with the high ankle sprain. My buddy Dave Damashek, he always likes to talk about the Jenga theory of football, where a lot of times, you lose guys, you take them out of the Jenga stack, and you don't know if that's going to cause the whole thing to fall down. Who on this 49ers team would you say is like that definite Jenga piece they cannot lose? Because in my opinion, I think they can get by without Trent Williams for at least these 6 weeks or so. Not make a Super Bowl run without him, but you got Bosa, George Kittle, Debo. Who would you say would be your pick?
Yeah, that Jenga piece for the 49ers, that is Debo Samuel. They cannot lose Debo Samuel. He is the only guy in the offense that really brings an explosive element to that offense. Without him, everything just kind of going to fall apart. They don't have anybody else to replace him.
Yeah, he's really, really special. The Niners and the Rams are two of the bottom 6 NFL teams in terms of offensive pace of play. So I kind of expect kind of a low scoring matchup Monday night. What are you envisioning Monday night as far as a final score?
Somewhere in the neighborhood of like 24-20. If they can get into that range, 49ers can score 20 points or 24 points. I think they win this game, especially with the way their defense play. And their defense is going to get a little bit. Matthew Stafford's better than the quarterbacks the 49ers have faced so far, so he's going to give them a little bit more of a test. But I think if the 49ers can score 24, they think they will come out with on the right side of this. I'd say 24-20.
It is interesting that on some of these teams where you've got a dominant defense and the offense isn't holding up their end of the bargain, sometimes over the course of a season that, there can be some bad blood between the two sides, just because it's like, hey man, you're making us play a doubleheader every day, and we're carrying the team. Do you see any of that? You've been covering this team for a while. Do you see any issues cropping up in that room if the narrative stays the same, where it's a dominant defense and an offense with a lot of big name stars that just isn't pulling their weight?
I don't see that happening right now, but definitely you could see that happening down the road if this thing continues on the pattern that it's going right now. I could see where they would start to become a little frustrated on that defensive side, and the defensive guys, Fred Warner in particular, he was a big supporter of Trey Lance, and he's already had really positive things to say about Brock Purdy. This thing continues to go down this path, and they're losing games because the offense can't get it together. I could see there being some fractures for sure.
That was interesting. Fred Warner went on 95.7 The Game and was touting Brock Purdy and how good he's looked. I saw the same thing in minicamp. I saw a guy the ball comes out on time with accuracy, plays with pace. He's very calm at the line of scrimmage. When they get the close-ups of his face, you can kind of see that he's processing things. He's not the biggest guy, but you know what? There's not a huge difference between, Garoppolo and Purdy as far as size. Garoppolo is 6'2", 225, and maybe Purdy's 6 feet and change, 220, right? I mean, it's kind of the same guy. He's a little bit more diminutive than Jimmy, but it's not like he's some tiny little, he's not Doug Flutie running around out there. He's a little bit more substantive physically than people paint him as.
Oh, for sure. And this guy, he played 4 years at the Big 12. He knows how to play. He's done it, and if he has to come in, I think he'll do a good job. I think my only concern with Brock Purdy, or my big concern with him, is can he just be consistent and not make the boneheaded plays? Because he's shown the ability to make the normal ones, and he's shown the ability to move around and make plays with his legs too. I don't think there's a huge difference right now with what the 49ers are getting out of their quarterback from Purdy to what Garoppolo's given them so far.
2 usage questions I have for you. Mark Failer says 49ers need to get George Kittle active. 3 targets last week is a joke. What's the point of having a super car if you're going to just leave it in the garage? What do you think the usage will look like for Kittle in this game? And then J.P. Mason, you heard the interview that Chris Forster did last week at the podium. When J.P. Mason's name came up, it was like, yeah, he looked pretty good in the preseason, but let's see how he reacts to the national spotlight. It was almost like, I don't want to say he was jinxing him, but it was like, I don't know what this kid's going to give me, and I don't trust him. It was like, that was the message I got. I'd like to see more of J.P. Mason. He's 230. He runs hard. You can't arm tackle him. I'd like to see a little bit more of Kittle, but I'd like to see a few more carries for Mason.
I agree with you 100%. I want to see J.P. Mason, and this seems to be a problem with the 49ers coaching staff, not just, and you heard this one from Chris Forster. I know it's always been Kyle Shanahan that's kind of been the guy that's been said, to not want to play young guys, but we heard it from Forster here too. You don't know how he's going to play until you actually let him play. And the one time they gave him the ball, he gained 7 yards. And let's let him get out there and let's let him actually do something other than just pass block. Give him an opportunity, because there's no other running back on the 49ers roster right now that I think has the explosiveness and the speed that he has. And I want to see what he can do as a running back, because I think that he'll do very well if you just give him the ball and let him run it.
No,
I agree.
Especially in building off that. I mean, you just said the Jenga piece is Deebo Samuel. So if you need to, I mean, obviously you can't give the whole load to Jeff Wilson. If you're going to just supplement that with Deebo Samuel running the ball, a zillion times, it's like, it goes back to the Trey Lance thing. It's like, you're kind of asking for something bad to happen at that point. And it's like, you got to mix it up with something, or at least, hey, I wouldn't be mad if they played Marlon Mack a little bit more this week or something, aside from special teams.
Yeah, no, it needs to be Jordan Mason. Jordan Mason's the guy that needs it. I'm going to stick on him just because we know that he has the speed to do it, and let's get him out there. I like Jeff Wilson. He brings a lot of versatility. He's going to make some plays for you, but that's counter that power with some explosiveness from the other guys in the backfield, and it can't just be Deebo Samuel all the time. And teams are showing that they've kind of figured out the Deebo package right now. So let's let Deebo kind of slowly step to the side and out of the backfield, and let's get the ball to Jordan Mason, and let's see Samuel kind of pick up the pace as more of a slot, the screen guy and those kind of underneath receiver guy that he was so good at last year before they put him in the backfield.
All right, he's Jack Hammer. He covers the Niners for the Santa Rosa Press Democrat. He's got a great YouTube channel, Jack Hammer 49. If you follow him on Twitter, he'll tell you likes are not endorsements. I'm reading that. Likes are not endorsements. Hey, last one for you. Tell us what you got planned. As far as people who follow your channel. It's a Monday night game, so that means your Sunday's free. What kind of coverage are you providing leading up to the Monday night game and Monday when people are thinking about headed out to the game? What kinds of stuff will they find if they go to your channel?
Well, there's going to be, I have the different shows. Last night I had a call-in show. Tonight, I'm not sure what my plan is for tonight, but there'll be a pregame show that's going to be coming up over the weekend. Before the game on Monday, there'll be another pregame kind of a show getting ready for it, because then we'll have a better idea of who's going to be active, who's inactive. So that'll be taking place. And then there's also practice videos and information from the players in the locker room and so on that they can find there as well.
Awesome stuff. Jack does a great job covering it. Ryan and I have been in the locker room doing interviews. One of my personal favorite, I'll see what Rye says. My personal favorite is Drake Jackson. I just think Jackson's hilarious, and he's got a great personality, and he's like he kind of reminds me of my kid. He's like a young guy who's just everything's new for the first time. He's appreciating where he's at. He's respectful of the leaders in the room. His locker's right across from Kinlaw. He can't say enough good things about Kinlaw. I just love the spirit of Drake Jackson. If you can go into the Niner locker room this afternoon at 2:45 when they have open locker room, and there could be any player in the entire room sitting there going, "Hey, Jack Hammer, come over here, let's talk." Who do you want to talk to in the Niner room? Who's the best conversation in your mind?
I think Drake Jackson gives you a great conversation. I agree with what you were saying there in terms of him. Beyond that, the other ones that I have been pretty good.
Who's your favorite? Juszczyk, yeah, Juszczyk's good.
Yeah, he's a Harvard guy, so he's pretty smart. I don't know if you knew that already or not. But,
yeah,
but Juszczyk's really good, and I would like to hear Deebo Samuel talk in the locker room. I haven't heard him talk. I know he's pretty quiet, but I would like to have a little bit more of a one-on-one discussion with him, just to get a little bit more of a better feel for him. I think he's a really interesting guy, and would like to hear what he has to say.
Yeah, especially since he's one of the leaders. What do you think, Rye? Who's your favorite interview in the room?
So far, my favorite, probably my top three in terms of just great vibes was probably Drake, maybe Jimmy Ward, maybe Jeff Wilson. And then, but I mean, and the thing about Drake Jackson that's awesome is like when we were talking to Kinlaw, Kinlaw's an intimidating guy to interview, and it's like the second Drake Jackson was brought up, like it put a smile on his face. So that was cool. I am totally with you though, Jack. Like there's a couple guys that it's like I'm not quite sure what's going on. I'd like to kind of figure out what like Brandon Ayuk. He seems like a little bit of an enigma. he seems like a nice guy, and he's been cordial, but it's like he's a little bit of an enigma. And also, and Debo's a different kind of cat. But I think that if he really opened up, he'd be super interesting, fun to talk to.
One of the one that I've kind of laughed with or thought was interesting was Dre Greenlaw. I think he's been a really good conversationalist, and he was talking last week about how Steve Kerr should look him up because he can hit the three. So I thought that was pretty good too.
Could you imagine Dre Greenlaw with the Warriors? He was just like so yoked up. I'll tell you the other guy a couple guys I really like talking to, Hufanga. It's like Talanoa Hufanga is like the kind of guy you'd want your daughter to marry. You know what I mean? It's like he's just respectful and he does everything right. And then I'll say I like Tayshaun Gibson.
Oh,
He's interesting and a guy who's, has a lot to say. And Jimmy Ward too. I think the safeties overall are good interviews. But Hufanga, I mean, Jack, why don't we finish with Hufanga? I mean, we've all seen players improve, but this guy went from like special teamer to Pro Bowler in like 1 year. And you listen to D'Amico talk about him. He loves them. You listen to Jimmy Ward talk about him. He did an interview with us, Jack, a couple of weeks ago. People should go to YouTube and check it out. And I asked him about Hufanga, and he's like, he is so good at film study. He said there's no hesitation in his game. He gets in the box in that cover 3, and his instincts on reading the run are just incredible. And he trusts his eyes. He trusts his instincts. He does tons of mental reps, and he doesn't hesitate. So there's no hesitation. He sees it. He goes. He's convicted. And, man, I mean, I got to say, Scott McLuhan wrote an article, or there was an article in The Athletic. I think Barrows or Lombardi wrote it at the draft. And it was like an interview with Scott McLuhan, who's his favorite guys. And his favorite guy, 2 days after the draft was Talanoa Hufanga, who was, defensive player of the year in the Pac-12 coming out. So he likes productive guys. But, man, I just thought, no, doesn't have the speed, probably, runs like a linebacker. He plays safety. He won't be able to stand up in coverage. Every time I watch that kid, he's better and better and more impactful. And I think there's people all around the NFL that are looking at him going, we missed on that kid. He's really damn good. Give me your thoughts on Hufanga, because I know you like to roll the tape back and forth. What do you think of his incredible ascension?
I think he's been fantastic. He like you mentioned already, he's a guy that showed the ability to play at a high level in college. I think the only reason why he was available where he was when the 49ers picked him up was because of the injuries that he had. If it hadn't been for the injury history, I think he would have been gone long before the Niners took him. And he's been awesome. And you mentioned it, the ability to play down inside, the ability to play on the back end. I agree with you. The speed was something that I thought was going to be an issue for him as well. That's kind of why I thought like last year he might be more of a guy that they'd be trying to fit into a linebacker role. But you're seeing him this year be able to run with wide receivers and make him plays, and it's really impressive what he's been able to do from season 1 to season 2. He's really proven everything that we have said that could be an issue with him wrong.
If Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch are watching this live stream, Bebop Jones, I think, sums it up. JP Mason needs more touches. I think we all agree on that one. Hey, Jack, awesome stuff, man. Your YouTube channel's blowing up. You do a great job. For people I'm watching the Niners and I'm not sure who do I follow. I follow Barrows and Mayoko and Krueg. I found your channel and Grant and all these. This guy right here is as good as anybody who's covering the Niners right here, Jack Hammer. So, Jack, keep it rolling. Thanks for stopping by on the Krueg Show. Nothing but success going forward to you and your channel. And thanks again for a few minutes and helping us break it all down. We really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me. I always like coming on with you guys.
Jack Hammer, we'll take him out of the stream right there, but man, he is awesome. He is really, really good. And his channel's great. His coverage is great. The players respect him. The media people respect him. He puts in the work. That's the one thing. It's like people respect people who put in the work and put it, not just the loudest voice in the room, but the person who actually wants to get it right, and you quickly can see when you cover the team who's just talking loud and who really wants to get it right. And I'm always impressed by Jack because I always feel like he, wants to get it right. And I think we're in the same category. We want to get it right as well. We don't want to spew a bunch of stupid, nonsense. So
I feel bad for him on Twitter all the time. Like, I feel like, because he's such a nice guy, and like he'll actually respond to people on Twitter, and like, people just like rip him for like being a Jimmy G stan or something. And it's just like, you just heard him. Like, he's like, he completely gets it. He just tries to stay as real and balanced and unspeculative as possible.
Yeah, that's a good way of saying it. Real and very balanced. His coverage is balanced. He doesn't have it. He doesn't have an agenda. He's not mad at any one particular guy. If somebody says, "Hey, I don't want to come on with you" or whatever, he's not going to banish them and blister them with criticism. He's a pro. He's an absolute pro. Michael Gallego says the three interior O-linemen are new and have mainly been learning the Trey offense, mostly power. Can they expect to be able to execute outside zone runs on short notice? I don't know, Michael, that they're going to run a lot of outside zone, to be completely honest, with the backs they have. I think it's going to be a much more diversified look. So, will they be, are there alterations and adjustments from the Trey offense to the Jimmy offense? Yeah. And Chris Forrester did a great interview last week with the media where he just talked about the differences, and he just said, "Hey, there's a few teaching elements, a few techniques that we would work on with our linemen for running quarterbacks to hold their blocks a little bit longer. That without Trey and running and having Jimmy in there and doing less running of the quarterback, that we probably won't practice as much." But basically, he said the run game's the same and the offense is the same. But there's a lot of pressure on Garoppolo, going into this game. He's got a fire. He was terrible last week. Brent Jones just crushed him on KMBR, crushed him. The one thing I didn't agree with is I don't agree with, crushing him for smiling at Cam Fleming as he's walking off the field. Because that, to me, they could be, their families could be friends. This guy blocked for him in New England. Who knows? They might be best buds. They might vacation together. If I saw, somebody who was my best bud who I vacationed with after a game, I don't care if I won or lost, I'd smile when I approached him. This whole idea that the smile indicates Garoppolo is just like doesn't give a shit about what he's doing, I think is erroneous. So that part I'd push back on Brent, but the rest of it was like, hey man, Jimmy, come on. You've been playing in this offense for a while. You've been playing in this league for a while. You don't take 4 sacks. Don't throw a crucial pick. Don't walk out of the back of the end zone. Be better on third down as an individual and as an offensive unit. Don't fumble the snap in the second half of a key sequence in a major game, in a regular season game. I mean, he did all of it. He did all of that. He was sacked 4 times. He had a safety. He had a costly pick. He fumbled a snap. I mean, he was a train wreck. Garoppolo last week was a freaking train wreck. And I don't want to say it's one man because it's more than that, but he didn't help. I mean, it didn't help. I don't want to pin the whole loss on him because it's a 53-man roster and come on, but he was terrible and he has to bounce back with a better performance, or guess what? We are going to see Brock Purdy. And I'm excited to see Brock Purdy. I think Brock Purdy's going to play well when he gets in there. But still, I mean, come on. Garoppolo is a veteran. He's been to a Super Bowl. He's been to multiple NFC Championship games. Step up your game. Step up your game. We talked about it in the post game last week. Even in the pocket when there's nobody around him, he looked unsettled. I mean, I could use the word jittery because his feet kind of had that, that patter back and forth, but he looked unsettled. I think that was the word you used this week, Ryan. I'm gonna steal it from you. That was the word that described him. He looked unsettled in the pocket, and he's got to be more settled. Cosell's talked about it. He anticipates pressure when there is none. He sometimes doesn't anticipate pressure when there's tremendous pressure. We just need to see a little bit more consistency in how he processes what he sees, how accurate he is with what with his ball placement, and can he play a little bit more with a little bit more calm and a little bit more settled with his feet. I think it's absolutely imperative. So we'll see. We'll see if Garoppolo can bounce back. I expect him to, but I also expect it to be like a 60-40 run pass split game Monday night. I expect the Niners to run it a ton.
Yeah, I mean, I'll say if they don't get JP Mason involved in this game, I think that it goes counterintuitive, but I actually think they should be passing a little bit more on first down. Just like easy stuff, getting it out to weapons quick as kind of like an extension of the run game.
That's a good point. It's a good point because they look so uncomfortable passing it in obvious passing downs that if they're going to throw it at all, it seems like the only time they have any momentum in their passing game, whether it be with Garoppolo or Trey, is when they threw it when nobody expected them to throw it. When they get to third and whatever, and the quarterback drops back to pass, I'd love to see the numbers on that. It's got to be really, really low.
Yeah. And I mean, you got to get him into a rhythm. I mean, that's he is a rhythm quarterback. So if you can give him a couple easy ones right off the bat, then, maybe that, I think with Jimmy, we're going to kind of know, the first drive can be misleading because it's all scripted, but I think we're going to know after, a quarter and a half, whether or not he's got it or not for the day. And I'm expecting, it's the Jimmy Garoppolo cycle. He's going to probably have a great game.
Yeah. A couple in the chat. Fear Me says, I'm old school. I'm not a fan of smiling and changing jerseys after a loss. Okay. I hear you. Believe me, I'm a little bit with you as well. CJ Gray says that smiling crap gets on my nerves. The captain of the defense looked pissed like the rest of us. I don't know. I would say they were probably reading something in that's not really there. We got this one from Archon Jedi. Jimmy's playing for his bag. He should play at least serviceable. Get paid, Jimmy. I don't know. So there you go. Just a little sampling of what's in the chat. This one is kind of interesting. Mark Failer, who's had some interesting comments. He said, based on all the extra media attention around Jimmy and Kyle, what kind of week do you think John Lynch had? Yeah, I'm sure John Lynch is sitting there. He's got to kind of act as the go-between. I think John Lynch does an awful lot behind the scenes to keep the car on the road. Don't you get that sense that he does a lot? When Grant and Kinlaw had their thing, I think it was Lynch that brokered the peace. When there's issues between players and coaches, and that I get the sense, and I don't know this for sure, but I get the sense that Lynch is the one who brings everybody back together. He does seem like a relative like glue piece for this organization. Do you think that's an accurate read? What do you think?
Yeah, I like how he kind of, look, John Lynch was in the media. He knows how to talk. He is a Hall of Fame player. If he wanted to be, he could be out there, being a super vocal general manager, and a lot of people wouldn't have a problem with it. But instead, he kind of moves, like they say, real G's move in silence, like lasagna.
That is good. All right, let's do this. We'll have a mention for our sponsors, and then we'll have one final word on the Krueg Show.
Larry Krueger here for Telmetrics. Thanks to Casey Bateman and the good people at Telmetrics. If you're an occupational therapist, if you're an orthopedic surgeon, a chiropractor, a physical therapist of any kind, Telmetrics is designed for you to use in your practice and will greatly benefit your patients. Telmetrics uses computer vision and artificial intelligence and provides a platform for outpatient rehab therapy services, both in the clinical and the telehealth environments. So using Telmetrics can improve your patient's experience and much more. So for all your sports injury needs, or if you're a physical rehabilitation specialist of any kind, make sure you use telmetrics.co, Telmetrix.co. And thanks to Casey Bateman and all the good people at Telmetrics for being a proud sponsor of the Krueg. I'd like to thank our sponsor, Dan Coach Emilio. Dan is a buddy, and he is a phenomenal Principal Retirement Planning Specialist. And you can contact him today at securemoney.com or at his number 925-628-9966. There's a lot of uncertainty in our world right now, and you want to make sure that your money is secure. That is the key. Danny's got 25 years of experience, born and raised right here in the Bay Area, and he can help you get an immediate 10% premium bonus on your Principal Retirement account. So give him a call, 925-628-9966. He'll make an appointment with you, and you can sit down. It's not a one-size-fits-all kind of a deal. He'll consult with you and come up with a strategy to get you going to where you want to be. Once again, 925-628-9966, securemoney.com on the web. And thanks to Tony Casera and the good people at Casera's Italian Menswear. They are housing the Krueg Show t-shirts, and they're a proud sponsor of the show as well. The Krueg Show t-shirt, the Krueg Show podcast t-shirt is available there at their store in Dublin. Their address is 7372 San Ramon Road in Dublin, California. And go see Tony Casera and get yourself a Krueg Show t-shirt and support the show. And special thanks to our sponsor, New York Style Italian Sausage. That's right, NewYorkStyleSausage.com is their website. Phenomenal product, whether it's the breakfast sausage, the Italian mild, the Italian spicy, the chorizo. You cannot go wrong with New York Style Italian Sausage. Once again, NewYorkStyleSausage.com. Often imitated, never equaled.
We grew up with a Sunday dinner. That means no matter how busy you were, no matter where the hell you were, you came to dinner on a Sunday night. Yeah, Sunday dinner without sausage, it's like a church without God. You know, how can you go to church if you don't believe in God? You know, and along with the sausage also became the discussions. That was discussion night. You know, it wasn't a typical family that you sit there and you're quiet, you know, and you don't talk with a mouthful. Oh no, man. Italians talk when they're eating. Italians even talk when they're sleeping. And definitely we talk with our hands. So if we can't express it through our mouth, through our lips, we express it with our hands. So, and that's what sausage is, really. It's an expression, you know, that life is good.
So New York Style Sausage was started over 70 years ago. We are the largest producer of fresh Italian sausage on the West Coast.
What makes our sausage in New York style is really the recipe came from back east, from New York, you know, from Connecticut.
If you look at all of our labels, there's maximum 4 or 5 ingredients, which we're really proud of.
There's no preservatives, no MSG, fresh in, fresh out.
The pork comes in fresh, goes out fresh. There's never any freezing throughout the process. We've always used fine quality cuts. We're never going to deter from that. It's one of the reasons why our sausage is so good. I guarantee you put our sausage up against anybody else's from a flavor standpoint, no one will beat it, hands down.
Hey, do yourself a favor and do me a favor. Go buy a package of the New York style Italian sausage. Guaranteed you will love it. Guaranteed.
You got to love the wink from Pasquale there. Couple things. One, I'm watching ESPN in my studio here. James Wiseman last night, Rye. Woo-wee, man, I could not stay up till 3 o'clock in the morning, but I did tape it. I'll watch it later tonight. James Wiseman. Oh, wow. He looked awesome. Did you see some of the highlights?
Oh, yeah. I mean, if you look at the stat sheet, too, it's like there's everybody pretty much struggled, and then he was just awesome. It's kind of crazy how similar it is to the Trey Lance situation.
I know, isn't it?
It's like we haven't seen him. He barely played in college. And then it's like, objectively, he's got so much more talent and all this stuff than Looney. but like they're still, they kind of have to figure out some tweaks to the offense in order to really get him going. But man, if they can figure it out, the lob potential. I mean, the way he just dunks on people, like he just barely even jumps. I think he surprises dudes.
7'1", about 255, 260, and just tons of talent. And think about this Warrior team. You got Steph, you got Clay, you got Poole, you got Wiggins, you got guys, Moody. You got to defend the 3-point line against Golden State, and now you got to defend the rim. I mean, when you have to defend the 3-point line and you have to defend the rim, man, that's a lot of room. That's a lot of room on the basketball floor. And it really is kind of the same thing. What we're talking about with Trey, why is Trey so attractive to the Niners? Because his foot speed and his arm strength create room on the football field for the Danny Grays and the Deebo Samuels and the run game and everything else. And what does James Wiseman provide? Room. All that room in the intermediate area, because you got to defend the rim and the lob. Otherwise, it's an easy 2. And you got to defend Steph and Clay at the 3-point line, or they're going to burn you. So
he takes away room at the other end.
Exactly. He's a rim protector. I cannot wait. I was really worried about James Wiseman last year when it just seemed like the meniscus was just like elusive, right? They just could never get it right. But now it seems like he's right, and he's everything. He's still everything they wanted as a guy, right? He's smart. He's respectful. He works hard. All the things that you wanted that you liked about the person, and now the game's coming and the body's healthy, and he understands the NBA, and you can see on these little pick and rolls, he rolls expertly right to the hole, perfect angles, where, when you watched him as a rookie, even a little bit last year, he kind of looked like, a little like he wasn't really sure what angle to get his body in. Like it was all kind of new to him. And now, my God, he just looks like he is going to be a monster, which is great news for Golden State. Absolutely great news. Look who's in the green room. Dan, Coach Emilio, just kind of hovering in the green room. What's up, Danny? What's going on?
Hey, not much. I heard you talking about my man, James Wiseman. What'd
you think? Did you watch any of it yet?
I've been watching the highlights. Unbelievable.
Isn't it incredible? Just his highlight package is just like, oh my God. I mean, it's exciting. It is exciting. I love Kuminga. I love Moody. I love some of the young players. But come on. This guy's 7'1", 260. This has been the big man that, man, as a Warrior fan, I mean, anybody who lives in this market and has followed Warrior basketball for decades like I have, Nelly was looking for a center. I mean, when they had Tommy T, they were looking for a center. They had Alton Lister, they were looking for a center. They were looking for a center when they had Chris Gatling and Victor Alexander and, all the different teams they've had. They've always looked for this guy, and now they have him. It's amazing.
As I watch this actually may put Steph up as the leading candidate for MVP, because now when he drives, he doesn't have to take it all the way to the hoop. They've got a guard against the lob. Did you see the one lob?
Draymond and Steph and Clay all throwing the lob.
Yeah.
I've always said this about Steph, like, because he doesn't get enough credit for his passing, because it's like he's not on ball the entire time, so he's not going to be, he doesn't have as many assist opportunities. I literally cannot remember a time where he missed on a lob pass. He's got such good feel. He never he always puts it right where it needs to be. So that is
and Green too. I mean, Green
too.
Can you imagine? Yeah. Can you imagine like 20 games in when Green and Wiseman have the timing down, just pat on the lob, and you still have all these other weapons, all these other players?
It takes the pick and roll you have to Wiseman. I mean, it's just going to be really, really hard to guard. Imagine Curry and Wiseman on the pick and roll. Wiseman or Curry drives. They pick up. Somehow they stop the pick and roll, and Clay's sitting out there wide open, on the three, because everybody collapses. It's just going to be so hard to guard.
Look at that. We got a shot of Ringo there.
Oh yeah, he needs some loving.
Hey, Ringo. All right. Yeah,
Ringo's
look, we got Buster in the background here, laying there.
there we go.
We got Faith over there.
Are they feuding?
It looks kind of like a feud, the way they're kind of like both laying down and pouting against each other. But no, these guys get along pretty good. Yeah, they're.
So what's the plan tonight, fellas? Are we gonna do a post? We're going to camp, open locker room at 2:45.
Yeah, I thought you guys might be heading down there. Yeah.
Yeah, we're gonna be headed down. We're gonna be leaving in a little bit. But what do you think? What do you think? Should we do a live stream tonight, or do you want to hold off till tomorrow? What do you guys? Whatever you guys feel like.
I'm curious what's going on here.
I maybe has a hot date, maybe a movie or something.
I think the Giants. I mean,
I want to go see that Fletch. I want to see that Fletch remake.
Yes, Dan, have you seen the original Fletch?
Oh yeah, with Chevy Chase, you mean?
Oh, okay. So high recommendation for everyone out there. Coming from a guy who I had never seen the original Fletch. The new one with John Hamm is awesome. It's like exactly what you want. It's a great R-rated comedy, feel good kind of thing you watch at the end of the night. And then it made me go back and rewatch, or actually watch for the first time, the original Fletch. And I was like, wow, I'm in love with the Fletch universe. So many good ones.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, I was just looking. The Phillies at end of 6 are ahead of the Nationals 3-0. So they got a doubleheader today. The Giants could be done even before the night.
They're having a debate on ESPN. Most important Warrior player not named Steph, Clay, or Dre. One guy went with Wiggins. One guy went with Wiseman.
Oh gosh.
I mean, I don't think you can say Wiseman because they won the championship without him, but
I mean, it's got to be Wiggs. I think. I mean, Poole's up there too. I think it's more between Wiggs and Poole because of what they did last year. But
Zach Lowe went Wiggins, and the WNBA girl went with James Wiseman.
Hey, did you guys discuss Tua earlier?
No, we really didn't get into Tua. That was kind of ugly last night.
Did you guys see the really a great point of view on?
I don't watch that show that much. The View. You watch that?
No, not the View. I was saying point. Oh yeah, I get you. Yeah, there was. I'm trying to think of the guy's name. Former player, played with. I can't remember who he played with, but he. I'm trying to think of his name. Mark Nitsch something. Anyway, former player came out. Who is it?
No.
I can't remember his name, but he said that the whole thing with, he knew it was a concussion Sunday. Everybody saw it. He's a former player. His point of view was that, the family is ones that are going to be there for you guys. And Tua, when he's 44, he's going to look back at him saying at 24, what the heck was I doing, playing? Because the coach could be there to pat you on the back, but the coach
we need an independent evaluator of these guys. I mean, heck,
there's no way.
They have these rules in place, but like the bigger the game, the less the rules are. The bigger the player and the bigger the game, the less the rules seem like they're followed. I mean, heck, guys, we saw the Giants in the 2012 World Series against the Tigers. Well, who was it that hit a line drive off the side of Doug Fister's head? It was a line drive off the side of his head with a baseball, and he stayed in the game. Yeah. So, I mean, he should have come out, but it was the World Series, and he's one of our best starters, and blah, blah, blah. And the same thing here with Tua. It's like, oh, he's our quarterback. He banged his head. He clearly was lost his equilibrium. He should have gone through some intense screening. It doesn't sound like there was any intense screening. Then he's back out there.
There's a
lot
of
yeah. I mean, they're going to have to get real about this.
Hope it doesn't come back on McDaniels because there's.
I hope it does in some ways. I mean, nothing against McDaniel, but it's time to get real. If we're going to say that we're prioritizing the health of the players, hey guys, let's prioritize the health of the players.
The concussion protocol is 5 days, right? He played Sunday, and 4 days later, he's back out again.
Well, I don't think he was evaluated for a concussion because he said it was a back injury.
Well, but that's bogus, though. They're not protecting him because he wants to play.
Oh,
And,
totally.
So
And there's
somebody's
pressure to play. There's all kinds of peer pressure, and
somebody's gonna lose their job.
the
over
team
this in the
doctors
Miami
are
organization. You watch
compromised. They're, come on.
there could be lawsuits coming.
Oh.
It's bad.
It could be a bad thing
and
for
the
the
more I
NFL.
looked at it, the situation and the fact that he got concussed Sunday to wobble like he did and lose his equilibrium, that doesn't happen on a back injury. I'm sorry, you're not able to play with a back injury and be mobile. The guy, so
he was concussed and it was obvious, and
so
now they're
what's
going to
gonna
have to figure it
happen
out.
Is I think he's going to be out for about a month now. I really do. I don't see how you put him back in there with 2 concussions within 5 days. And the second one last night was gruesome. I mean,
it's bad.
So
it's really bad.
He could miss the entire year. I mean, if he has symptoms, he's probably going to have some serious side effects, what they call, post-concussion syndrome. Very likely that he has headaches. Mac Williams.
Who knows? It's scary, scary stuff.
Yeah.
I got to jump because I got to do a couple things before I pick up Rye for camp.
Have a good day down there, Santa Clara, and we'll talk to you either tonight.
And
or
the Giants are still alive.
barely hanging.
All right. We'll see you later tonight.
All right.
Let's before we do that,
never met a man I've been scared of. Careful, you won't get exactly what you asked for. Careful, whatever you bring me getting handled. I answer to no one, I don't need to hassle. We ain't never fall back. Hold our ground where we at.